All right, so last night I took a couple of pictures of my mess of a wiring system here, and then I looked at a schematic, and then I came back here and videotaped it again so I could take a closer look at it, and looked at the schematic. So anyways, I got really excited, and I decided today was going to be the day that I'm going to work on the electrical system on the 67 Project Bug. So I went through all my boxes of junk, and I found a few different headlight switches. Not sure if they work or not. I have a key switch that I know this isn't the right key for it, but I don't really care if the switches at this point work. Here's a flasher switch that I don't even have a knob for, but I just want to get them installed so I can get all the wires plugged in so I can see what I have and what I don't have as far as factory wiring. Okay, back over here, the way Volkswagen color codes it, it's pretty easy to follow, and by the connectors you can tell what's factory and you know what's not. So I'm going to go through here first, and I've seen a couple of wires that are they're taped up, and there's a couple that are obviously not Volkswagen. So I'm going to pull those out, and like I had mentioned before, it has an electric fuel gauge, so I think I might just take this whole speedometer out. I've got one from a 66 that I could put in there, and that will eliminate some of the wires and get some of this out of here. And this, I don't know what's going on, but that doesn't look like it's factory, but we'll go ahead and take a look at it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and plug the ignition switch in and the headlight switch, and then just kind of monitor. Like I see a couple of wires that are missing here that have been unplugged. So we'll go ahead and figure out exactly where all this goes, step by step. But for now, first thing I'm gonna do, like I said, I'm gonna take out all the non-factory wire, and then some of this other stuff you can see that's taped up here, I'm gonna pull all that loose. Earlier I went through here, these were duct taped, and these, I don't know if they're gonna be parking lights. That'll go to the rear turn signal, that goes to the front turn signal, so that's what I'm guessing. This might be parking lights. So we'll go through here. You see the headlight relay, it's all still hooked up. So that's not gonna be an issue. All right, for now I'm just gonna grab my schematic. The neat thing about it is it's on your phone, so you can just enlarge it and see what you need. I got it off the Samba, I've used it many times. This is 67 only, so I definitely have to follow it. I will be back. Okay, this headlight switch came out of a 66 that I was recently stripping down. It was frozen. I got it to loosen up, but it should have all the correct prongs. So what I'm doing here is just making a little record of it so I could just refer to my phone instead of having to reach underneath the dash and try and figure it out. Okay, here's the bottom of the ignition switch for the numbers. And while we're at it, we'll look at the, see if we can see the numbers on the flasher, which we can't, no numbers. All right, no worries. All right, back under the hood, I'm gonna have to put this phone down because I wanna pull up the wiring diagram, so I'm not gonna be able to film it. So all I'm gonna do is, like I said, match the numbers and plug them in. Okay, so I've gone in here and hooked up headlight switch with everything that needs to go on to the correct places. Wiper switch was already hooked up. I just had to put that into place. We got the emergency flasher switch is hooked up correctly. And the ignition switch, which isn't even the right one for the car, doesn't even line up. And like I said, I don't have a key. So it's just hooked up so I know where the wires go. So now I'm going through and identifying all the wires that go to the fuse box. And then, you know, I'm finding some damaged ones. Like you can see, this one's supposed to be plugged in over here. And you can see this was taped up and it's kind of charred. So I'm going to try and figure this one out to at least, you know, fix the damage end. And then, like I said, I'm going to go through here and just make sure each one of these are hooked up and plugged into the correct spots. It's supposed to have a big blue relay box here where this hot wire is supposed to go into. And I don't see any place where there's a marking on this one for to run the hot wire. This is a conventional 3-prong. They've kind of jumped, so I've got to look at that. But everything else is pretty straightforward. Switches, like I said, are all in. And I'm just gonna go through and chase the rest of these and get these plugged in. All right, back shortly. Okay, after tracing everything down, everything is hooked up and plugged in correctly. Like I said, got to figure out the power to that box, but that's about it. All right, so now I'm going to go underneath the back seat here, and we've got to take a look at bypassing the voltage regulator. Now I went in here and I see that somebody has cut this. So I'm going to slide the seat out and I'm going to figure out what's going on here. All right, stay tuned. Okay, out back, we are not in bad shape. I thought this was a cut wire, but as you can see, it's just a fat connector that had broke off. So I could replace that connector, but I've got an alternator running already. So I've got to do some bypassing on this. So this blue wire needs to be connected to the green wire, and that red wire needs to be connected to that red wire. And then we could pull this thing out and then hook it up directly to the alternator. All right, on the dash, I've got the switches put in. I do not have the correct 67 knob, nor do I have a knob for the emergency flasher switch. But to test it, you know, all you gotta do is twist the headlight into place, and you can make that switch work. Or find the screw that'll go in there. All right, so next thing I have to do is just come back here and hook up my wires for my alternator, 80 light, and pull the coil wire through. And then I've just got to wire up taillights and headlights. And I think we're gonna be able to start to test on this thing. So hopefully tomorrow we'll get a battery in it. All right, under the back seat, I spliced the two fat red wires together, and then for the warning light, the blue one, I just put one of these splitters in there, and on the other side of the firewall, the green, I'll extend it and run that to the warning light. The thick red one will go to the alternator. As you can see in here, probably gonna have to make my wire, no, maybe not. So that will go on there with a bigger connector, and that's gonna go with a new connector there. A big ground wire there. And I think we're gonna be set. Black wire. I'll make a new one, that'll go to the coil. And we'll have the engine compartment wired up. All right, the motor is now all wired up, ready to roll, as well as the tail lights. Got bulbs in there, got everything hooked up. So the rear end, except for the license plate light, as you can see, is not there. Okay, we had a license plate light laying around, so I threw it in there, hooked up a wire, and lo and behold, we have a license plate light. I never have a license plate light. And I do not have reverse lights, but everything else is ready to roll. Now we're gonna move on to the rest of the front. All right, I'm buttoning up the last parts of the electrical system on the Project 67, and I found that the harness for the interior light was stuck inside here. So with some of this hard blue wire, I was able to fish it through, and I've got enough length on it. So I've just pulled the bows loose so I can drop this here behind it, and let's see if we can get the interior light hooked up. All right, what a coincidence. I happened to find a interior light sitting on top of my toolbox. It's an aftermarket one, and I had some bulbs. I have a feeling that's a 6-volt bulb though. But anyways, just got to change one connector, and we'll have the interior light done. All right, there we go. I can't do it with that thumb. All right, this should work. All right, move on to the next. All right, let me try and get you caught up. I still don't have a key switch. That's coming on Monday, but I can't wait. So I've jumped the key switch with my starter button, and as I push, oof, you can hear we've got starter. Turn on my headlights, and we've got headlights. We've actually got high beams. Parking lights, I haven't hooked those up yet. That's what I figured out some of these were. So parking lights are not hooked up. I do not have tail lights. Because, you know, I do not have ignition switch, like I said, but if I complete the circuit here, you can hear the windshield wipers are working. And also I have dash lights. So far I've got everything going except for tail lights, and I haven't been able to test brake lights. And I have not got my lights to come on the dashboard, but we're gonna check all that out. All right, so it's a good start. Just gotta move a few things around, but I think if I wanted to, I could start this car today. But I'm not going to. I'm gonna try and finish this electrical system so I can get the hood back on. I'm still waiting on my headlight buckets, haven't been delivered yet. All right, move on. All right, so now with my jump wire from the alternator to the coil, I do have dash lights. So that means we are live at the coil. We get the gas tank cleaned out, get some gas in it, we might be firing this thing up tomorrow. So far, all I have is no tail lights. I'm gonna try and address that shortly. All right, so I did my initial test and I've got wipers working. And I noticed that this wiper switch is supposed to be on the driver's side, not the passenger side. But for some reason, the wires don't line up. You know, they're not long enough to make it go all the way to this other hole on this side over here. So I'm gonna turn this off because it was hitting my headlight switch, so I had to pull that off. I'm gonna figure out the routing on this. I'll be back to this. I had to pull out the wiper assembly. As you can see here, it's incorrect. It's probably 68 and up. This harness needs to be a lot longer so it'll sit on the driver's side, not on the passenger side. And then once I put the headlight switch in, then it was hitting against this bracket. So even though it did work, it was 2-speed, it was pretty cool. It's just not gonna work for my application. So for right now, living in California, I don't have to really worry about it. I'm gonna be, I'll be scoring another one. I've got a couple of 6-volt ones laying around. I'm going to measure to see if they're the same size. I think one's out of a 66. And if it is, I'll convert it to 12 volt and just use that. But the rest of this I've got all worked out. I've got a number of wires that I could still remove here. But waiting on my key switch, but as you can see, we are going to be ready to fire it up on the next episode. By then I should have my headlight buckets, and we will have it cruising. And everything else is hooked up back here. With the sun shining, we're gonna take one more look at the electrical system, fuse box in general. Still have this wire here. I'm gonna go back to the factory 9-pin or whatever it is. So that's gonna be replaced. That's what this power wire is gonna go to. And like I said, I gotta get a wiper mechanism and get that all put in there. But that's it, everything's working. Can't test the turn signals, waiting on the ignition switch. All right, we're still having issues with the tail light. So I've come back here, you can see I've got my carburetors in. I had to pull this air cleaner off to get in here. I sprayed some carburetor cleaner on there so we could figure out which wire is which. And then I come down here and that's busted off. But on this one, that's not busted off. So did somebody try and bypass that? All right, unfortunately this side I can't even get into at all. So looks like the taillight's gonna have to come out. We're gonna have to try and pull the wires and pull the air cleaner and see if we can get up in there. I mean, I could barely even see. There's a zip tie. See, things look like they're hooked up, but something's been messed with in there. All right, so I'm gonna have to take this apart and see what's going on. All right, on the passenger side, here's the license plate light, and my gray and red striped wire is all hooked up, as is the other ones. So I should be getting power there. Let's hook up a test light. I was able to get a test light on the right side tail light, so we do have power coming back to the harness. So it's got to be inside my tail light assembly. So that'll be the next thing I take off. Let me see if I get power to the driver's side. Okay, as you can see, I have power. As you can see, I got power to the left tail light, so we're good there. So I just got to take the lights apart and see what I'm doing wrong. After just a short amount of work, got tail lights. All right, time to put the carburetors back together. Here we are, end of week 1. It's Friday. I bought it last Friday. As you can see, we've got lights. Look at that. Uh-oh. Somebody got a little dim here on me. You have to take a look at that. We even have a license plate light. We have dash lights and brights. Turn signal's not quite yet. Still waiting on a relay. Front, we got the wiring all buttoned up. Like I said, just waiting for the relay. And that's it. All right, thanks for watching.